have to tell you that Japan loves German, right? I mean, there are just so many examples out there in which they use German names for so many things. No wonder though that it's fairly common for you to pick up a few words of my mother's tongue. Not that mother. Get her out of here! Especially pop culture has quite a bit to offer in that regard. If it's one of your favorite animes, which houses a bunch of German names or lets the main characters speak German directly.
Wunderbar.
Believe it or not, Deutsch can be found in quite a few video games as well. Stunning! I know! Well, let's get to the bottom of that matter and look for a few examples. With that said, konnichiwa and willkommen to my video series Japan Talks German. Data East's punk clone of a fighting game with frisbees in it is perhaps one of the best competitive games out there and is also known as Windjammers. This former Neo Geo classic gives you 6 athletes from all over the world to choose from, each representing their native country, and all of them speak their own native language, of course. Germany's fun boy goes by the name of Klaus Wessel and is one of the heavy hitters in the game. His special move has the potential for some serious knockback, but with a name like Rocket Throw, or better known as Raketenwurf, this kind of power should be expected, right? Our mighty Klaus here is, to no surprise, my favorite, all because of its beautiful pronunciation.
Wunderbar.
Oh, and if you want to see more of Windjammers, check out the video I've made, because nobody did. Yeah. So please check it out.
Raketenwurf. Gewonnen.
Buggy Heat came out when Sega's last flagship was still in its early days and filled the gap for folks with a little need for speed and their hunger for more arcade-driven games. One driver in particular catched my eye, or should I say his name. Schwarzspiegel. Yeah, that's a very interesting choice. Black Mirror, huh? Is it because his buggy is black and therefore all of his mirrors? Or is it the color of the driver? I would like to know the intention behind that. Well, anyway, it sounds pretty funny in Japanese though.
Schwarzspiegel.
By the way, the American folks of you should know this game under this one. It's TNN Motorsports Hardcore Heat! Then there are people who think that only Japanese titles are too long. Well. The Zoekoden series is a well-beloved RPG franchise and is loosely based on the classical Chinese novel The Water Margin. Despite its good reputation, I can unproudly say that I never played a single one of them. I'm not the biggest RPG fan, so... From its first release on the original PlayStation in 1995, the Suikoden games followed an irregular chronicle sequence of events. Everything took place within the same world among continuing and overlapping histories. Until 2008, that is, cause at that point, Zoekoden Tierkreis arrived as a spin-off title to explore one of the myriad of worlds that exist in the Suikoden metaverse. So it's basically an infinite possibility what-if future story. Do I get that right? Suikoden fans, please clear that for me. The name-giving Tierkreis is of course the German term for zodiac or Zodiacus, and should not be confused with a Zodiac killer. lovely boys and girls over at Cave also wanted to express their enthusiasm for the German language and gave the destructive fighter jets of Ketsui, one of the best Danmaku shooters of all time, such splendid names as AH-Y-72 Tigerschwert, which translates to Tiger Sword, and the FH-X4 Panzerjäger, or Tank Hunter. But I guess Panzer Hunter is also quite understandable and sounds really awesome. And as much as I read through the story of the two Espgaluda games, which is, by the way, pretty fucked up and involves gender-swapping fairy-like humans with psychic powers in a steampunk fantasy world. Beside that, I still couldn't find a real explanation for the use of German in Espgaluda II. At the end of stage 5, you encounter Sesteri, the half-sister of Ageha and Tateha, which are the protagonists in both games. Since Sesteri's defeat in the first game, which ended with a great Shinra war, Ageha and Tateha fled to the nation of Soma, while Espgaluda II takes place in Soma, but Sesteri was born, raised and lived her entire life in Shinra. It's no wonder that the text at her feet reads Shinra, meine Heimat. Or for you English-speaking folks out there, my home Shinra, or Shinra my home. Despite the fact that everyone speaks Japanese in the game, I suspect that German was once again only used for reasons of style. Tja, der Magie des deutschen Wortes kann sich eben keiner entziehen. The last game for today is quite famous among the few who played it, or those many who will play the upcoming remake. I'm talking of course about Yoko Taro's highly praised Nier, which spawned from Drakengard's E-ending into its own franchise. The first Nier game got a worldwide release on Xbox 360 and PS3 in April of 2010, while its name in the West was simply Nier. Japanese players could choose between Nier Replicant for PS3 or Nier Gestalt for Xbox 360. At its core, both games are identical, and the main difference is just the age and relationship the main character has to Yona. In Replicant, Nier is a young teenage man and Yona is his sister. But in Gestalt, Nier is a man in his 40s with a daughter named Yona. Therefore, some of the dialogue got changed, but the main narrative of the game remains the same. The German word Gestalt translates to the essence or shape of an entity's complete form. It's also the name of a project to save humanity from the uncurable white chlorination syndrome, which was spread by the Maso after the battle between the dragon against the giant in Drakengard's previously mentioned E-ending. This Gestalt version was declared to be the base for overseas markets cause everybody knows how much Westerners like big, buff masculine heroes instead of androgynous sissies. Yeah. They got that so wrong. Oh, and by the way, Nier's companion, this little floating book, is called Grimoire Weiss. And yes, Weiss is white. Well, that wraps up this video. I hope you all learned a thing or two. Yeah, this is, by the way, the 5th video in a series, but the first 4 are completely in German, except for part 2. That one has subtitles. I'm thinking about to transform them into complete new videos or mix 1 or 2 games from older videos into newer ones. Until then, see ya and auf Wiedersehen.